Microphone working. Hello. I have some visitors. Hey. And they left. So rude. Let's see if my mic is on. Yeah, seems to be working. Alright. Today I had to start a little bit earlier because I have a lot to do today, work-wise. Wait, let me just turn down the music a smidge because I can't hear myself. So I feel like maybe I'll start a little bit earlier so I can work on my own stuff until late in the night, which is, you know, the healthy way to do things. Hello. Alright, today I want to at least accomplish two things. I want to be able to interact with objects when I get close to them with my hands, and I want to be able to grab them and maybe drop them as well. I think those go hand in hand, literally. However, if you remember from the last time, basically use the trigger to calculate if somebody released it and then just throw. You can just throw something without grabbing it first. It'll just spawn in your hand. Miss. And still haven't got the hang of aiming this. It's gotten better. It's gotten better. And I can just drop them on the floor as well, I guess. Or through the floor. Yeah, I should probably put a timeout on those. The ones that miss. It's getting better. Feels kind of good as well. Doesn't seem like that's what it's supposed to do. There seems to be like a critical speed. Oh yeah, I remember now. Based on the speed, we generate an amount of lift. So if you start slowing down, it'll start falling. Just like a real-ish airplane. So if I... Oh, there's my other hand floating in the air. If I throw it softly, it'll gain a little bit of height initially, but then it starts falling down fast. If I throw it harder, it'll go way further until it slows down and then it just goes straight down. But it seems like if you reach some sort of critical mass, I can't see it's going too far. Oh, there it goes. It's falling. Then it'll just keep itself, like based on speed, increase its height, and after a while it will increase its height so fast that the speed is higher than the amount of increase, and it'll just keep flying upwards forever. Yeah, should probably do something about that at some point. Object is too large or too far away from the origin. Yep, that's what'll happen. Fun. Could try and clamp the speed. Definitely. And I should do something like that. Because right now, I don't know which, I think it's in this one. We just get the speed from the rigid body and just multiply a force on the up vector with the speed and don't do anything about it. But this speed, this magnitude, this has to be clamped at some point. Otherwise, we won't know for certain if it'll start increasing the speed too much and basically keeping itself going forever. But first, I want to create some form of interaction. And I think I've shown this during one of the lectures as well. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. Make it slightly bigger. No, make it smaller. Yeah, fine. I gave my birds some toys so they would be quiet, but now they're fighting over which one can use it. They're just like little babies that will never grow up and live to about 15 years old, so good on me. I am going to create something to interact with first. So basically what I want is that when I, in the digital world, hold my controller, my hand, close to something that is interactable, like a button or In the case of our game, you could drag the window open and shut. So I wanted to highlight it, but that's for later. Highlight it by maybe changing its material. When I want to be able to highlight it, I want to be able to start an interaction, stop an interaction, and I think based on that you can do a lot of stuff already. And for that I need to be able to know when my hand is actually close to something. Now my hands are these tiny little cubes right now. They're scaled down as well. First off, I should separate these hands and maybe even make them into a prefab. In fact, I think I might just do that. First off, because they're scaled down, all of the colliders I will put on there will be scaled down as well, and that's not really what I want. I just wanted this small cube to represent the hand instead of a meter by a meter. So let's see. First off, I'm just gonna call this one hand. Add a cube in this case. That is 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. And just call this the mesh. And remove the mesh from the hand. Now if I move the left hand out of the way, you'll see that there's a tiny little one there. It's because the scale is still 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, meaning that the mesh was 1/100th instead of 1/10th of the object. Now this doesn't need a mesh renderer anymore. It just needs the trackable and the hand component. That's fine. Other than that, I think I can make this into a prefab. Boom. Now I'll remove this one, and I'll also remove the left hand and basically re-add them, but as the prefabs. So if I change something in one hand, it'll change both hands. Call this one right hand. Oops. Again. Call this one left hand. Again. And the only thing I had to change was the node to track. Left hand or left hand. That's the only difference between the left hand and the right hand. It's which controller it basically tracks. Now if I open this prefab, which I should be able to do now in this version of Unity, I can just add stuff specifically to this one. Do I want the hand to be its own interactor? Maybe. Or do I want a subcomponent that does the interaction for me? I think that's what I want to do. In fact, that's what I'm going with. Because it's going to be independent from the hand. Though it does require input from the trackable, it doesn't require anything else. Okay. Create an empty. Call this the interactor. Add a sphere, not a superior, a sphere collider to this. Make it a trigger. Well, this is kind of big. This is a meter in diameter, 0.5 radius. Let's make that more like fitting off the cube. Nah, it's too small. We can make it slightly bigger. Slightly bigger than the hands are itself. Like this. And it's a trigger. Then I'm going to create a new component. Not a game object, but a component called interactor. And I'm gonna, oh, don't crash. I'm gonna add this to this. Oh my god, I think I've included all of my plugins, which means there is already an interactor component. Yep, interactable and interactor. Crap, too clever. Guess I'll just rename these ones. This is, however, interactor, blah blah blah, tag interactable. Oh yeah, this is the Raycast interactor. That's not the one I want. Yes, I just want to use my new one. Luckily for me, I namespaced all of this stuff. So that means that that's fine. That means that I can have several classes with the same name, but because they have a different namespace, it doesn't matter. They won't conflict with each other. maybe I'm gonna call this XR interaction. And I should change the class as well, just to make it abundantly clear that it's not the same thing. Because this will be used for VR related purposes. And AR. Nice. Automatically grabbed it. Good. Now, in this case, whenever an object enters our sphere, we want to check if it's interactable. So I'm going to create another component called XR interactable. Nice. For now it's empty. I think, yeah, but I'm going to add some methods to this. First off, public void start interaction. And maybe also pass in the interactor that started the interaction. Oh wait, like this. Nothing for now. If there's a start interaction, there should also be a stop interaction. Silence. Also nothing yet. And maybe a void within range. So when it's within interactable range. Entered. Enter interaction range. And exit. Right. I'll be using these methods to determine when I should start an interaction. Let me just put some logs in there so we have something to look at if it works. Started interacting with interactor.name. Yeah, that should work. Stopped interacting with. I don't like this name, enter interaction range. I should think of something better later on. That's true. I need a certain amount of viewers and subscribers, and I guess for that I need to up my my stream count. But I'm already kind of low on time. But I do like streaming. Maybe during vacation I'll be able to do some extra streaming, because I'll be working on this game anyway. This is enter range interaction. This is exit range. Yeah, nice. I would love to be able to subscribe to, but alas, Twitch is a fickle mistress. For now. Maybe during the vacation, because I recently made a giant purchase in the form of a house, so I won't be able to do too much vacationing. So I should be able to spend some extra time making games that I can possibly sell at some point, so that I can earn some more money, so actually pay off that house at some point. Yep, fine. And the interactor, which is attached to the hand, so it'll move with the hand by itself. On enter, on trigger enter. There it is. Thank you, autocomplete. On trigger enter other. We're gonna try, as soon as we come close to something that we could possibly interact with, we're gonna check if we can actually interact with it by checking if there's an interactable on the other component. Get component XR interactable. This, I'm gonna guarantee this is gonna cause a bug. The difference between interactable and interactor at some point. Anyway, for now, let's assume. If this is not null, that means that whatever object we came close to has an interactable component on it. And that means we can enter its interaction range. And I'm going to pass along the object itself so we know where it came from. In case we want to get the transform or something, the position, something interesting. Do something similar. Private voids on trigger exits. We can copy most of this. Check if the other component that we just exited the trigger from has an interactable. If it does, exit interaction range. Nice. Alright, this could be enough for now. As in, I should be able to test something with this. However, I first might need to add something to be able to interact with. And I'm just going to add, do I have any nice models? Meshes. The house might be a little big. I'll add the heart also. Skip this song. Thanks. Could you show us how to make a wrecking ball swinging type object? So something that's on a string, but without cool rope physics. That is an interesting one. I haven't actually used rope physics. I don't know if there's a joint built into Unreal, I think. If let's just create an empty object. Joints. Yeah, there's joints. I think joints and springs. Springs might actually be a little bit too springy. It might become more like a bungee cable than an actual rope-like thingy. But I think the gist of it is with joints, distant joint, configurable joint. Actually, I've never used any of these, only the 2D ones. The thing like the rope swinging, Wrecking Ball from Overwatch, his rope is always just a line. It's more or less a fake rope. It doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't actually have rope physics attached to it. It basically is just a joint between the point where you click and the player. But I'm gonna guess that's not exactly the one you mean. Oh, okay. That is what you mean. Well then. I think that is simply a joint between 2 points. But I've never actually used it. First I'm gonna finish the interactable, and then I'll see if I can make something that resembles a joint. Which, you know, don't take that out of context. It sounds a bit weird. First, let me just add a... let's do another cube. Most games start out just looking like a bunch of cubes everywhere. Has a box collider on it, fine. No rigid body. Does that mean that the trigger won't trigger? Probably. I'm just gonna add the interactable, XR interactable component to this one. I have to wear it, otherwise it doesn't trigger. Let's see if it actually shows up. It's my hand. Pop, 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 pop. Nothing, yeah. Which makes sense because there's no rigid body attached. Don't use gravity, please. And maybe make it static. It's schematic, fine. Yes, enter range, exit range. Enter range, exit range. Good. Check the console here. Oh, it's collapsing. Enter, exit, enter, exit. Good. That's pretty much what I want in the first place. However, now I want to be able to do something with it. And for that, I'm going to use my favorite thing. Events. You can do multiple things that are interesting. For example, if you enter the interaction range, it sticks to your hand. Usually that's not what you want. You want it to do that when the interaction starts. Which I think in the trackable... Oh yes, I did add a untrigger down and untrigger up, which I can use to trigger. That is actually very nice. Cool. I'll be using that. Good going past me. 420. '17 did some C++ SDL2 games for like a year. I love VR games. Is it easy? Ooh, if you're using SDL2, then VR, you have to do a lot of stuff manually, which is you have to create a disposition between the... You have to have two different cameras, for example. For each eye, you need a camera. There needs to be sort of a minimum displacement between the two. And you have to generate an image that is basically an overlap of both of them that maps to the projection on the inside of your screen, which there are some tools for that to calculate which matrix you need to use for it. If you want to do VR games in C++, I recommend using a library that is, or a game framework that is made for it, like Unreal. Unreal is C++, exactly. Unreal is C++, and it has VR plugins built in that are very, very good. In fact, I was planning on using Unreal for this game, but because I'm giving the Unity course right now, the Unity lectures, I feel like I'll just redo it in Unity first, and I'll use Unreal for something else. Unreal is very good in multiplayer, and I think very good in VR. Unity does not have C++ support yet. I feel like they might give that, like they might start open sourcing parts of it in a few years, but as of yet, there's no C++ you can add. But if you really want to use C++, Unreal is probably the way to go. Otherwise, if you want to make your own renderer that renders to a VR screen in 3D, that is not easy. I don't think I've seen any tutorials on it. You'll have to read up on VR projection matrices, which is the first step. Basically merging two camera views into one single image that is projected on a certain curve. Because, well, I can show you. In the inside of the VR set, there's these two lenses that diverge your viewing angle quite significantly, and there's a little bit of overlap in the middle. So if you see what's rendered on the screen inside of the VR headset, it's like two circles with some overlap in the middle. Should I make a course in Udemy? I think there are some very good courses in Udemy. The ones that Ben Tristan makes are actually pretty damn good. I think he has the official quote-unquote Unity course, and he also has an official-ish Unreal course in which he does the basics, and I think Tom Lohman, which is a very good Unreal developer, takes over after a while. They have some nice courses. I wouldn't focus specifically on VR courses, because I would focus more on just learning how to use an engine. Because if you use an engine, VR is almost trivial. As in, I just had to enable some settings and my VR set worked. I didn't have to do anything. I don't have to program the camera or anything yet. I'm not doing anything special with it. When I start to use particles, I'll have to do some stuff, unless they fixed a certain bug. But if you know how to use an engine and you know how to use certain interactions, because you'll run into these similar types of interactions in first-person shooters or in third-person games or in top-down games as well, wherein you have to check if there's something in front of you to interact with. The same principle applies here. I'm just, instead of having the thing that I use to check if there's an interaction possible right in front of the player at all times, I've attached it to the hand so that I can actually try to move it into place and see if people, or if there's anything interactable within that range. So the basic core principles of game programming in Unity are the same, if it's in VR or not. There are some other things you have to keep in mind in VR. Scale can look really off, and so that the objects have to be of a realistic size, otherwise you feel tiny or very large, or depending on what type of game you're making, that might be an option you want to go for. VR works? No, but I've heard of it, and I know some students are using it. Oh yes, I just give it a quick Google. Yes, I have seen this. I haven't used it though, but I do think some of the engines use this as their VR interaction framework. If you have an NVIDIA card, which I have. I'm running on a GTX 1080, and I specifically bought this one because everything in the 10 series and also the 20 series, the new ones, have a neat way of double buffering, which leads to higher performance in VR. Basically, I think what it comes down to, and don't quote me on this, is that when the image is rendered for your screen, you only have to render it once, but because in VR you have two cameras, each for one eye, it has to be rendered twice. And these new GPUs, like NVIDIA, they basically have a system to detect, well, we don't need to re-render everything, because what you're seeing is mostly the same. Maybe we only have to re-render some stuff that is specifically different to each eye, and that gives a huge performance boost. And I think the 1050, 1060, 1070, 1080 all have that technology, and probably the 20 series now as well. Though AMD cards are very good at rendering as well. It's just that NVIDIA seems to focus more on VR lately. Yes, I wanted to see if I can start interactions. So, if we want to start an interaction, we have to start it on some sort of object that might be in our range or not. I'm going to do a few things here. First, I'm going to add the start method, because when the game starts I need to do some things. I want to retrieve the XR trackable component that we made 2 streams ago. Get components XR trackable, and store it locally for now. The autocomplete is having a bit of a fit. Thinks I'm doing normal C#. I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah. VRWorks is nice stuff, but it's more or less a framework that you can use in other engines and frameworks. I don't think I'd use it by itself. I don't think it's meant to be used by itself, and maybe unless it's for demoing purposes. On trigger down and on trigger up. On trigger down would mean that we start our interaction. I'm going to create a method called onTrackable trigger down. And remember, because we have a trackable on both controllers, that means that this onTrigger down and onTrigger up method will trigger depending on which controller you're holding. So it will automatically know which one it is. Create a method onTrackable trigger up. So basically a trigger and a release. But now we have to keep track of this one. So if the interactable is not null, we can do this in several ways. I remember, well, I'll just show you. First, I'll have an interactable that I'm currently in range with, and I'm just going to call it interactable in range, which by default is null. And it's a private variable. And as soon as we find an interactable that is actually within our range, the interactable within range becomes this interactable, and we're going to call enter interaction range on this one. And as soon as we exit it, interactable within range, we exit it, and interactable in range becomes null again. So all we have to do in our trigger down and trigger up method is check if we have an interactable in range. Basically, if we're close enough to interact with something. So on trigger up, that means interactable in range on quick stop interaction. So fighting. And trigger down means start interaction. Whoops. There we go. Now let's put this in nice little semi-alphabetical order. Because I like to keep my code in alphabetical order. Yeah, that should be enough. So if there's an interactable component on whatever we're close to, we can start and stop interactions with it. That means that this cube, for example, it has the interactable component. I'm just going to drag it to the top if it doesn't crash. Yeah, burps were having a little bit of a fight in the background. I bought 2 toys, 2 chew thingies for them, and they're both going to play with the same one. It's literally like actual children, I think. Alright. Interactable, sure. I'm just gonna check if the output makes sense, just to see if it's actually calling the right method. And if it doesn't, crash. It's my hand. Oh yeah, can still. Because I have a... now I can just create these hearts, because when I spawn the airplane, it immediately hits the trigger that's around my hand. But it's okay. Enter range. Exit range. Enter range. Exit range. Good. I should probably stop it from spawning these airplanes. XR trackable. Where did I do it again? Oh, I do it in the hand. Trackable, throw it. Untrigger trackable. Yeah, I'm just gonna disable that real quick. Oh, object not set to a reference of an object. Alright, we'll see what that is. First, check the output. Interact to exit. Interact exit, yes. That doesn't do anything. How about the other hand? Exit, enter. Oh, that one is too close to the thingy already. Automatically enters. Alright. Oh, I made a mistake. It's not get component because interactor is one child of the right hand. So I shouldn't do get component, I should do get component in parent. A rookie mistake. Could be made by anyone. So that's why the untrigger down and untrigger up doesn't function. Alright, let's try again. And yeah. Enter range, click, started interacting, stopped interacting, started interacting, stopped interacting. Started interacting, out of range, stopped interacting, does trigger. Good. Because as soon as we go out of range, the interactor stops. This is a lot. This is a lot. We can do a lot with this. Still hard to go over the component program. I'm just used to writing a lot in one class and not small component scripts. Any advice? Yes. It is very hard. It is a very hard thing to master. And I'm not ashamed to say that it took me a long time before I realized I should split my stuff into components. Not just because Unity wants it. It's just, it works very well with game engineering. Because there's mostly shared functionality and not a shared type. Because object-oriented programming focuses more on a shared type. There's an enemy, there's a walking enemy, a standing enemy, a patrolling enemy, whatever. That still makes sense, but there's a lot of shared functionality as well. Maybe the walking, you walk as a player, the enemy can walk, other types of enemies can also walk. So why not create a walkable component and have that handle all that stuff? So it really is a way of thinking more so than a way of programming. You have to be able to think about your code as if it were loose functionalities. And in these cases, where the objects represent actual real-life objects, like hands, that is slightly easier, because then you can just do, well, what can you do with your hand? Well, you can point at something, you can get close to something within interaction range, you can interact with it, obviously. More importantly, you can grab with it, which is something I will be implementing next. And because I have multiple hands, it's good to create one grabbable component. Though, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with putting everything in one class up to a certain point. There is a certain point where the class becomes so big that it becomes almost unmanageable, and you changing something in a class will break something else, and that's not what you want. That's just something that is super annoying. Let's see. Some of it works. I imagine it like a clockwork, kind of. Every small piece has a function. Definitely. I think that's a good analogy. That's a good similar, because every little thing has its specific function, and combining all these tiny little functions together creates one big function, basically. One big functionality that you want to use for a specific purpose. Like a player, like I keep saying, it has a walkable component, maybe even a grabbable component. It shouldn't be able to go through walls, so it might have a collider. All of these components, by the way, you don't have to make all of them yourself. A lot of them are built into Unity, like the sphere colliders, all the and the transforms, and so much stuff is already built in. Because this is so much shared functionality, you want a lot of stuff to not be able to go through each other, so why not create a component that makes sure that it doesn't go through other stuff. I think about a feature and then imagine how small I can make it, or how many pieces I can cut it into. That is a good way of thinking, I think. Stop fighting. It's hanging upside down. It is a good way of thinking. There is, however, a point where it becomes too much, I think. Personally, I try to, sometimes it's okay to have one class do multiple things if those things are all very small. But as you can see with all my code, I try to make everything that does a specific function into one mono behavior. And if you look at the code, you can see that it inherits from a mono behavior, implying that it should only do one thing. Mono behavior, single behavior. It should do only one thing. Stuff like this doesn't work as well in Unreal, for example, where components are not as easy to communicate with each other as it is in Unity. That's why I use these events. Well, I will be using these events. But still, if you have multiple components and you just have them interact with each other at certain points in time, like when something interesting happens with one of them, like the interactor determines that I entered some range, so you activate another component to notify it of that you've been entering it. C has no classes. That's true. C has no classes. I think the best you can do in C is structs. That's illegal. Yeah, C has no classes. C has structs. The whole point of C++ was adding classes to C, which is why it's called C++, because it's one better than C. I think SDL2 is a C framework as well, but you can use C in C++, not the other way around as much. Depends on your compiler, I guess. I think the best way to practice learning how to divide something in components is to just grab a real life object like a car or something that you know how it kind of works, and it has certain wheels and whatnot. Almost. And then try to divide it into functionality that it would share with a bicycle, for example. Something that is similar but completely different. It has an engine, or at least something that drives it, something that pushes it forward. So it should be able to, well, speed up, accelerate, and slow down. There we go. Well done. A table. A chair. Yeah. I guess in the context of a game engine, that could actually work. I don't know if you're making a joke, but in the context of a game engine, that could work depending on where you put your colliders, for example. It is also, component-based is a supplement to object-oriented thinking. It's not necessarily a replacement. Well, it was a joke, but it does work, kinda. Yes, the joint. Alright. I've never used a joint in Unity before, so let me just see if it's easy to attach. I'm gonna assume it has a beginning and an end point. I think it just attaches two other objects together. Let's see. If I create a cube somewhere in the air here, in front of us, no, that way. And I think the one you want should be a hinge. Because Wrecking Ball in Overwatch, you attach it at a certain point and then it doesn't do the thing where if you swing and you go over a certain point you fall down like that. It just goes like this. Like you always stay at the bottom of the joint. So that's more like a hinge than it is a joint. If I hang this somewhere around there, add a rigid body to it probably. Make it kinematic. And I guess another one. Duplicate it. Control D duplicates. Hang it under it. Hang it slightly over here. I don't know if that would do anything, but hinge. Hinge joint. Connected body. See. Alright. This one. Did I make this one kinematic? I did. And stop using gravity as well. This one. Anchor. Ooh, these are just settings. Brake force, infinity, blast scale. Alright, let's just see what it does. Go. Oh, I'm stuck in one of the cubes. Just hang still. Not exactly what I want. Can you visualize the joint? You can. Maybe I should do it the other way around, come to think of it. This one should be attached to the other one. Because the other one is static and it doesn't move, which kind of makes sense. Can I just drag? I can. Yeah, still pretty static. Crap, I can't focus the camera on it unless I hold it like this. Use gravity. No. I'm not sure where they both are. Oh. Oh, yes. There we go. Yes, I made a mistake. I even said it. I even said I duplicated it without realizing that would also duplicate all of its settings. So this one is also kinematic, meaning they both don't move. I even said it out loud. There we go. Now it's kind of swinging. I mean, it doesn't visualize it, but that should be easy enough. If we add a line renderer to one of them. Probably the one that is attached. Effects line. Wow, it's built in. Thought you had to make it manually. Yeah, this is just a simple line renderer. It's not automatically attached to anything else. I guess you have to create a script that basically takes the endpoint. I think you can find all the vertices somewhere. Ah, positions. There we go. First one is 0, 0, 0, one is 0, 0, 1. No. Is also that. Alright, I'm gonna give this a slightly more interesting position, but just to show you what it'll look like. 1.5. 1, 0, 1.5. 1, 0, 1.5. In the opposite direction. Is it using world space? It's not using world space. There we go. And this one is 1, 2, 2.5. Nope, tap 2.5. There we go. Lovely and connected. Of course it won't move with the object yet. No. It won't move with it yet. But you'll have to use code for that. Which I can go into later, but I first want to finish my thingy. Can you visualize the joint? Shit. I've never used a joint in Unity before. Or in real life. If you are making a grappling hook, then I think a joint would be very nice. Depends on if you want to swing from it or grapple towards something. Because if you want to grapple towards something, you don't need joints or springs or anything. You just detect where you hit it and then you move towards it. Yeah, if you want to swing from it, then you're going to need a hinge. We'll just activate the joint as soon as I want to start hanging, otherwise disable it. Pretty much. I think the easiest way is to, like I said, I've never used it before, but if I see this functionality, a hinge joint component seems pretty easy to use. You just connect it to a different body. So that means that if you give your player a hinge joint and the connected body, you attach that to whatever. Whatever you are looking at or where you can connect your component. It also has an anchor, which is good. Auto-configure connection. Okay, sure. It has an anchor point, meaning that it doesn't always have to be the center of the object, because otherwise I figure if you want to connect to a different object, it will always rotate around the center of that object. Actually, let me check if I just move it all the way over here, if it still joints easily. Oh, yeah. Kind of. I think it's limited to certain... yeah. The axis determines on which axis it joins. So I guess you can joint it over all axes. Axes. I have to hold this like this. Yeah, there you go. Now it actually swings. Nice. The connected anchor point. I think this is an important part. We don't want to use a spring. Don't want to use a motor. This is all fine. This here is the important part. The anchors and the connected anchor, because you want to make that has to make sense. Like from the player, it's kind of fine if it goes from the middle of the body to wherever, but it needs to end up where you attach it, not at the position of the object, if you know what I mean. Because in this case, these cubes all have the position. Well, their anchor point is all like slapdash in the middle. Which might not be where you want it to be. You want it to be more to the side. For example, if you hit it on the side, you want it to be on the edge of an object. Exactly. But that is something for later. It depends a lot on the game you're trying to make. If it's a 2D platformer game, then it doesn't matter. Then you only have to check if it's at the bottom or something. But it seems to be working fine. You can determine which axis it can hinge over. Yeah, seems fine. I think the Unity manual probably has a good page on it. I found the programming page on it. Not yet an example page, but if you check the manual and look for a hinge joint, I think you should be fine. And just try some stuff. You can't really break it. And be sure to put in some form of version control in case you actually do break it. Right. Trigger down and trigger up. Yeah, that worked. We started interaction, stopped interaction. Now, what I want to do, I already made a grabbable component that has a throw method. I'm going to change everything about this. First off, I'm going to rename it XArt for grabbable, I guess. Or maybe I'll just make a new component while I'm at it. Because why not? XR grabbable. Please open. Please clap. Thanks. And grabbable component is going to require a type of XR interactable component. That means the grabbable component, you can't add a grabbable component without it having also a XR interactable component. Because in the start or in the awake, I'll just do start. When the game starts, I want to detect when the interaction starts. And I'm going to do that by adding some nice, cozy little events. Once again, action. Do I want to pass along anything? I think I do. Yes, I want to pass along the interactor. So it's an action, which means it's a method that wants an interactor parameter on interaction starts. By default, it's an empty delegate. Public events action interactor on interaction stop. That's pretty much what I called it internally, I guess. And I'm adding this to the wrong class. I knew it. I called it earlier. This has to be added to the interactable. Yes. And this has to include, I think, system. There we go. And this is actually not an interactor, but an XR interactor. Getting there. So, enter interaction range exit, start interaction. Actually, I'm going to rename this so it's more unstart interaction. So it's more in line with the function names that we have already. Unstop interaction. Start interaction. Instead of just doing that, I'm going to call the unstart interaction. Pass along the interactable, and that's it. Whoops. Stop interaction. Unstop interaction. Pass along the interactor. And that's it. Now, in grabbable, not this one, in this grabbable, I can get the components XR interactable, which we know for a fact is here because we required it. So it has to be on the same game object. So we don't have to check if it doesn't exist. XR interactable. Sure. Interactable dot on start interaction. I want to call this on interactable start interaction. Nice and short name. And interactable on stop interaction. I want to on interactable stop interaction. Which I guess there we go. Nice and outlined. So grabbable, what all of this does, all of the stuff I just typed does is when an interactor interacts with an interactable in range, it will call the start interaction method on that interactable, which will throw out this event, the onStart interaction event. And grabbable hooks into that onStart interaction event, and then you can do something with it. For example, we pass along the interactor that instigated it. So if we want to pick something up, we can set our Actually, yeah, we can actually relatively easily do that. Private XR interactor, current interactor. By default, it's null. We just set the current interactor to the one we're interacting with, and when it stops the interaction, we set it back to null. And in update, all we do is set our position to the current interactor dot transform dot position. If the current interactor is not null, so only if we have one that's there. So this means that as long as I'm holding the button, I could pick up an object and it should move with me. And as soon as I let the button go, it should stop. Comparison to null is expensive. Get out of here. Comparison to null is not expensive. Ryder. Get out of here with that nonsense. Okay. I have not yet added the grabbable component before I look like another idiot. So XR interactable, move that all the way to the top. In fact, I could show you if I delete this and I add a grabbable component, it will automatically, nope, not this one, XR grabbable. It will automatically also add an interactable component. And you see I can't even disable it because XR grabbable requires it. If I want to remove it, it also says, no, you can't. Another script depends on it. Which makes sense. So now it has a grabbable component. Maybe it's better to call it pick-upable or something, but man. Alright, it's a lot of typing. I hope it works in one try. I doubt it. Ah, moved it away. Shit! I moved it out of the range of my camera. I have to move it a little bit closer to the player. Version control. Why even bother? Alright. Crap. And now it's attached. I forgot to also update the rotation. So now it just moves with my hand but doesn't rotate, which is kind of creepy. And if I let go, it just stops. I can pick it back up. It will immediately move to my hand. Which is fine. I'll tween it later. But yeah, that's basically it. I can just grab it, let it go. This should also work with gravity. Though I should probably disable gravity as soon as... First though, transform that position, current interactive position, and transform that rotation equals current interactive that transform that rotation. So otherwise it looks kind of weird. And I'm also going to make this cube a little bit smaller because otherwise I can't really see it. R is scaling. Scale it down. Use my little cube hand to pick up the other little cube. There it is. Grab. Now it's just attached to my hand. I can't throw it, of course. Because as soon as I release it, it'll stop updating. Grab. Loose. Yeah. So I can put it anywhere in 3D space. I'll put it over here. Or over there. And I just have to touch it a little bit to be able to grab it. Because the sphere around my hand is slightly bigger than the hand itself. That's my other hand. That's its shadow. Let's put it over there. There we go. Kind of neat, right? Now you can pick something up and put it somewhere else. Of course, it flying towards your hand doesn't look really nice. I'll make sure to animate that in a future version, but it is good enough like this. Now, because it has a rigid body attached to it as well, we can do some cool stuff with it. First off, I guess if it's enabled and it's not kinematic, it would just fall down. If the the gravity snail. There it goes. Crap. It's under my desk. I don't think my... Crap. I don't think my controller can track. Nope. Can't track under my desk. Alright. But what we can do is, instead of only having the interactor here, we also retrieve the rigid body in start. Rigid body equals get component. Rigid body. When we start interactions, rigid body is kinematic. It's true. So we can just move it around. I mean, it is already true in the settings, but for now I'm just going to do it. If you stop interaction, I'm going to set kinematic to false. And gravity, use gravity, set it to true. So then I guess I can just pick it out of the sky and drop it. Yeah, still compiling? Oh, there we go. Grab it, attach it, and as soon as I let go, it will just fall. Good. Now, I think in the original game we had a desk that we actually put stuff in front of us in. Like the paper planes you were able to pick up, you could just pick it up from the desk. Do you have this project available on Git? No, I don't. This project I don't. I might, come to think of it, I might upload part of this project. Though I do use a library that I've written myself that I don't want to open source yet. Maybe at some point in the future. But this, these are all just basically VR tools. And there is a framework that has a lot of VR tools built in. I forgot the name. Hang on 1 second. What's all this fighting about? You both got new toys, and still, it's not good enough. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, it's a shame. It's a real shame. Yeah, it's real bad. Yeah. I know, she keeps grabbing your toy. Yeah. What's that? What's going on? Yeah, it's fine. Do you think I should open source my project? Is that a yes? Well, you make a great point. I think I might open source parts of this. Yeah, I'll put it on my GitHub. The basic VR interaction, though, it's mostly for learning. There's, I think Unity has a plugin or an asset that is VR tools that has a lot of this stuff built in. Though I don't like using assets, third-party assets for this kind of stuff. Mother of birds. Well, yes. I have to keep them apart. I have to stop them from fighting in the back seat. Yeah. Luckily, they're both found their toys again. I used some assets for the Game Jam. Only one, actually. The VR plugin from Oculus itself. Because the XR thingies didn't work very well at that time. And it was a bad experience. I don't think I want to do that again. I'm using XR now. Everything I'm doing right now is using the built-in Unity stuff, which might mean there are some limitations. Meaning that, for example, I don't think haptic feedback is implemented as well, though I haven't tried it yet. Though, actually, I've actually never used this haptic feedback. Might be cool to vibrate the controller a little bit as soon as you enter the range of an object that you can interact with. Let me check. Oculus controller vibrates. Unity. Something about haptic. Yeah. No, it seems like it's not really built in. Haptic feedback Unity. Handheld.vibrate. Now that seems a little bit much. I think that's for phones anyway. Yeah. It seems to be using all the examples I can find seem to use the Oculus plugin, which I don't want to use again. It was terrible. No, I find something here. XR nodes. Get device haptic capabilities to try to get that. Okay. It seems like I might be able to send an impulse. Not sure how well this. I'll give it a try. Not sure how well this works. Right now I'm just gonna put it in the. Where should I put this in? Trackable? No. Not really. But I guess I'll just put it somewhere like here. And trigger down and trigger up instead of throwing a plane. See if I can get it to. Actually, no. I'll just do it in Trackable because that's the easiest way to get access to the node because I already have it here. You know, a cool thing that I don't want you guys to do ever is that you can basically hook yourself up to your own events. Trigger down a front to programming. So when I trigger on trigger down, it will also trigger this method that I could just call here as well. But you know, just to show you, I can hook myself into these things. So input device XR node. I already have this node to track. In fact, I already have the input device. Delete that. Try to get haptic capabilities if it supports impulse. Send haptic impulse. Alright. Easy enough. Don't do this at home, kids. It's bad programming. Ah, it works. Not very strong, but it does work. I guess the amplitude being 0.5, probably up that a little bit. 1.5. Duration 1 second. No, doesn't have to be that long. 0.1 is fine. Just a little bit of a pulse. Oh yeah, this works pretty nice. Gives us very tiny little vibration. This could work very well to indicate that there's an interactable object within your reach. VRTK, yeah, that's the one I meant. I couldn't think of the name, but yeah, that's the VR toolkit. I think it's more or less made for people that want to click together a game instead of programming it, but there's a lot of stuff in there that basically I'm rebuilding right now. Because it's relatively common. XR trackable. I should probably create a specific component for this to send haptic impulses, because I know the Oculus controller supports it, I know the Vive controller supports it. I don't know if the Oculus Go supports it. It might, maybe not. But it's good to have a component that disables itself when it's attached to an object that it's not actually doesn't actually have that functionality. They're climbing on my curtains. Hey! Little goofballs. Let's see, I have about 15 minutes left. What shall I do? Maybe grab... Oh yeah, maybe. I should make it throwable. Though grabbable implies throwable. But I guess, yeah, why not? I'm just gonna remove this again, the vibration stuff. Or at least the trigger to it. And XR directional, XR grabbable. Yes. Start interaction. Cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add something to this. This one has just an untrackable trigger down, trigger up. Basically only does something when something interesting happens. When the triggers are collided, when you enter or exit it. But I wanted to also pass along the delta movement. So I think I'm already keeping track of that in the XR trackable, if I remember correctly. Velocity, yes, I am keeping track of that. Which I also made publicly available here. And the interactable has access to the trackable. Well, you know, the hardest part of programming is basically making sure information gets where you want it to be. That is why all these design patterns exist and such, to make sure that information that you have at some point, for example, I have the velocity here in the trackable component, I can recalculate it in the interactor or in the grabbable, but why would I? I already have it here. And having that one component be responsible for it, it's more stable. You might make a small mistake in your calculation at some point, in one of the calculations, then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So why not just pass along this information if you can? And in this case, the interactor has the trackable start interaction, stop interaction, and I'll guess I'll just add an update method here as well. That if null doesn't equal interactable in range, I'm going to rename these at some point because I don't like them. An update interaction. Yeah, don't like that name, but whatever. The interactor and effector 3 velocity. Oh yeah, wait, I don't have to call it velocity, just effector 3. And I should put that here as well. Public void update interaction. XR interactor vector 3 delta? No, velocity. It's actually a good name. So you know which one it is and how fast it is going. Interactable in range dots. Update interaction. This and trackable dot velocity. Yep. Fine. So now in grabbable interactable dots update interaction. I guess I'll create a new method on interactable update interaction, which has an interactor and velocity. Whoops. And all I'm going to do is keep track of that last velocity while I'm moving it around, basically. By default, it's vector 3, 0. this one. Less velocity equals velocity. So the moment we release it, we set gravity to true, rigid body to true. And we apply some force. Now how did I do that here? Grab wall to throw. Oh yes, I just did an add force. Okay. Last velocity, and it's a velocity change. Now as soon as I do that, it'll move itself out of range. No, this could actually work. So now I can throw it, instead of it'll just drop to the ground as soon as I release it. Let's see how this works. Nope, wrong controller. Grab it, hold it, throw it. Nope. There she goes. Let's output this velocity to see what it's actually doing. Open the console. Thank you. Grab. Ah yes, I can see some numbers flying around. And as soon as I release it, it's going to have false. I guess this should be true, because otherwise, if I set the velocity wrong, I think if I throw it now, it'll just keep going. You guys can't see, but I have a tiny little hand, because I'm in the Unreal version of my house, which is included with Oculus. Grab. Nope. Add force, last velocity mode change. When I stop interaction. How did I do that with the plane again? Or did I forget to update the components? Cube. It's kinematic. Doesn't use gravity. No drag. No, this seems fine. It's a box collider, not a trigger. Whoops. So when I throw it, why doesn't it do anything? Maybe I can just multiply this by 100 to see if it does anything. Maybe the number is just too small so it doesn't move much. I guess it could also just pass along the velocity always to just show the delta movement between two different positions. Breaking something in my code. Wait, I said it's kinematic true. Whoops. Whoops. Oh, there it goes. Bumped into my hand before I threw it, but there it goes. Not exactly what I wanted to do. Not exactly throwing. See if I can restart it real quick. Ah, it bumps into my hand. If I just leave it now here, I can just move it with my hand, which is not exactly the point Ah, flew away. I think it collides with something on my hand before... Oh, there's a box collider on my hand. I forgot about that. Because I added a little cube, which automatically adds a box collider. That's what it is. Because the sphere is a trigger. Crap. This would explain the other bug as well. That's fine. If I release it, it'll just fly away. Good. And if I grab it and throw it, oh, it goes way too. Oh yeah, times 100. I forgot. Times 100 might be a little much then. And try to release mid-throw. Your velocity on the end of the throw is usually 0 because you stop your hand little g. Ah yes. No, not in this case. I throw. Like you see that a lot. You're right. You see that a lot that people kind of just let go when they're already like their hand is already still. So you have to let go while you're still throwing. But the point was, or the error was, there was still a little collider attached to my hand that interfered with the interaction, which should be gone now. If I just leave it here, it should gently float away. If I grab it again, if I move it slightly and I release it, it'll keep going in the direction. Whoop, don't fly way too hard. So basically it's like space. I should probably also have angular input. Basically it's like space. So if I slowly move it towards that, nope, and let it go, nope, damn it. Alright, I missed. But there she goes. Flying away without rotation. So I guess I should be able to throw it now as well. Grab. Throw. Yeah. Tink. Nice. No gravity applied to it at all. So it'll just keep going infinitely. But this is kind of what I wanted to do with it anyway. I want to be able to throw stuff. However, I want the object to determine how it wants to be thrown. So my grabbable components just adds the force. Actually, this is fine for now. It just adds the force to the current rigid body. It doesn't do anything else with the rigid body. Or it doesn't add the force, it sets the force of the rigid body when you let it go. And then, for example, if we have the little airplane, which we have here, which adds speed to your rigid, or like lift to your rigid body based on your current speed, that can work on your rigid body as well as being throwable. So I guess if I have a little airplane, maybe I can make one real quick. Or I don't know if the one that I have here is good enough. This one has grabbable and gravitable. Don't need this grabbable, need the XR grabbable. And XR interactable, yes. Which is automatically added. So now I should be able to. I'm just gonna unpack this prefab so it just becomes its own object. XR interactable, XR grabbable. The airplane component. Oh yeah, basically lets something else know that it has been hit. The gravitable component just adds a certain force downwards always. I'm just gonna make this real light for now. I forgot where I put the plane. Is it on me? Is it in me? Oh, there it goes. Somewhere. Fell off. I need to put it I need to create a fake table to put it on, like where my desk is. Because otherwise I can't grab it in time before it falls off. This cube has served its purpose. Airplane. Put it on top of that. Hopefully it doesn't glide off. Because I haven't made something yet that detects when it has been thrown. Dang it! Alright, I need to put the airplane a little further. Oh yeah, I didn't see. It's actually not really above it. There. Now I have to grab it out of the air because I think if it hits it, yeah. Okay. I'll just remove the part that it destroys itself as soon as it hits something. It will spawn a heart. It will spawn a lot of hearts. But at least it won't be destroyed immediately. And I have to make sure I don't punch a hole in my monitor. Dang it, it's still too far away. Get closer. Get over here. Alright, there it is. Grab! I got it. In my grubby little hand. I should probably add a transform to the... so that I can attach it to some specific point on your hand. Because now it's not doesn't have the right rotation. Anyway, I can't throw it. And it it just lifts up into space. Because because the gravity is so low. So all the lift it gains. Yeah, I should fix that. Actually, yeah, instead of applying lift upward, I should apply lift in the direction of the up direction of the plane. There it is. Nope, don't fall off. There we go. Whoops. That might have been a little bit too much gravity. Point being, it works. I can grab stuff now. I can throw it. Interactable system works fine. Cool thing is, as I'll probably be doing next time, or maybe I'll do an extra stream at some point if I have some extra freaking time. You can very easily make buttons and such with that interactable component. You can very easily make a well, if you put a cube anywhere, you put an interactable component on it. Maybe you make a button component that just hooks into the interactable component, and on start interaction, you trigger something, and boom, you have a button. Because all that is needed is that there is an interactable component on there, and it becomes interactable. Which is not the fastest way to do things, but it is a very nice way to do things. Alright. I gotta hurry. I gotta go pick some stuff up before I start my final leg of the day. Thank you guys for joining the stream. It's a bit shorter than usual, but try to pack it full of information. Maybe a little bit too much. But if there are any questions, feel free to contact me. I'll consider putting this on GitHub. I'll make as soon as the game is finished, or like if it's in a working state, I'll put it on GitHub, so that then it's more. You have something that you can actually use as a start-off point. Minus my own libraries, though so far I haven't used any of the functionality in my own libraries. I've been using Unity stuff. But yeah, you're welcome for the stream. I gotta run quickly and gotta feed my birds a little bit. See you guys in school, probably, for the people that are actually going to my classes, and have a good weekend. Bye.